登録して。
Car D Kaizoku.
This video is sponsored by Card Market, Europe's largest online marketplace for trading card games. This video is sponsored by Sleeve Chief. Their latest release, the Brothers Strategy Collection, comes out September 5th. It comes with a deck box featuring Doflamingo and Rosinante. It also features a Rosinante and Doflamingo sleeve, border sleeve, 2-player playmat. So if you're excited for this Don Quixote release, don't keep your wallet waiting and pick this up when it releases on September 5th. And use my code CARDKAIZOKU for 5% off your order. In today's video, we're going to be doing an OP08 speculative tier list. That's right, OP08 comes out in a little less than a month now, and it's going to be a meta like no other. So let me rewind it back a little bit. So the reason it's different this time around is that we're getting a meta that is completely our own, because they announced the banning of Starter Deck 10 Red Purple Law and then the Ennie's Lobby stage card in a Lucci deck. But that's for Japan's OP09 meta. And then yeah, I criticized Bandai saying that like they have a history of not implementing those kind of meta correcting changes until it's too late, right? We get the same ban list at the same timing as they do in Japan, but they proved me wrong. We're getting it for OP08 actually at the start of OP08. So we're going to have like our own meta without Red Purple Law in it, our own OP08 distinct Western meta here. So I thought it would be exciting to try to base this tier list off of my inherent thoughts on these leaders, because I played quite a number of them already in 08 and see how close I get to what actually ends up being the meta in OP08. It could be right, could be wrong, could be close, could be completely off. That's the fun in doing these kind of videos and revisiting them later. So yeah, let's take a look at how we're breaking down the tiers. So we have S tier. That is a deck that you'll see at every tournament. It'll top every tournament. It'll be in every top 8. Then we have the A tier decks. These are decks that will probably show up in most of the top 8s too, right? They're strong decks on their own. They might just have like one glaring weakness in their matchups against the other S tier decks or something like that. But for all intents and purposes, these are what I would consider the meta, right? S tier and A tier. Next up is the Rogue tier. These are decks that'll show up every now and then. They're strong when you can dodge all your bad matchups, and then they're better than all the other like crappy decks in the meta. And these are the decks with like the diehard fans that have stuck with them throughout the different sets that have been released. And everyone's really hyped when they show up in the top 16. So that's what I consider a rogue deck. Then the Cope tier, these are decks that people want to be good, but honestly, I don't think they'll be that great. Maybe they'll show up at a top 16 like once in the entire 08 meta, and then people will like hop on the train and notice that the deck isn't that great anyway. But they've got avid fans. They'll comment on your videos asking for you to play them over and over again, even though their decks kind of suck. And then finally, we have the Every Time That I Kill Kaya tier. You can reference this tier to see all the timestamps that I kill Kaya in my Purple Luffy video, because some people think that I don't kill Kaya, but I kill her like every single time that she is out, unless I wanted to play like 2 kids or something, because I wanted to prioritize getting Tudon back the next turn with my 9-cost Kaido. I don't know, I consider that a fair trade-off, letting them Kaya 1 extra time so you can KO it the turn after. And let's not forget the like 6 other times that I kill Kaya in the like 4 games that I played. So I don't know what drugs you guys are on. But yeah, let's get started with the tier list. So let me scan through. So the first entry I would like to go over is actually Red Zoro. Red Zoro I kind of think he'll be an S tier, TBH. And yeah, I know that sounds real sus coming from me because I'm like the Zoro simp since OP01, but hear me out. So no Red Purple Law, right? Red Purple Law, I think actually kind of like devastated Zoro. Because not only could you always bottom deck one of Zoro's characters, because they're all like really, really cheap characters, really low power characters, you're also being able to attack into them and then playing out a character to also attack into them. So Zoro just could never keep a board out against Red Purple Law. Now that he's gone, against every other deck in the meta, they have trouble dealing with Zoro's boards unless you're like a black deck, right? Any ramp deck, they might just die by the time they get to 10 Dawn. And even if they're at 10 Dawn, playing like a 10 drop doesn't save you from the army of like 5k pings coming at you. And against other aggro decks, it's hard to out aggro Zoro at the moment, because what he gets in 08 is the animal package with Chopper and the Drum Kingdom package as well. You're playing out a bunch of Chopper characters. You're able to cheat out like 1 or 2 extra characters a turn. Your board will always be full, and then you always have a healthy hand to defend. your own life with. And to be honest, your opponent attacks your rested characters more than they'll attack you, so you'll usually be pretty healthy. So because of that, I think Zoro might actually be S tier, depending on how the other decks shape up in the meta, right? If Lucci and Gecko Moria end up too overrepresented, I could imagine Zoro having a bad time. Bonnie too, I think Zoro has trouble against Bonnie. Zoro has historically had trouble against 8-cost Kid oriented decks, and Bonnie being like one of the strongest users of 8-cost Kid, being a Supernova package deck, I could see Zoro having trouble against that for sure. But against every other deck, like Black Yellow Luffy, right? He doesn't run too much removal besides the Egghead Luffy. You'll probably like get him to start having to expend counters before he can get going with his 8-cost Gecko Morias. Pudding, you absolutely destroy. They can't really like survive against your volley of attacks. Blue Doflamingo, he can flood the board with bigger bodies just as quickly as you do, but I do think the animal package is just a tad faster and you're able to outpace him, at least until the Doflamingo starter deck comes out. Once that comes out, it gets insane. Like Doflamingo, I think Flood's even better than Zoro once that's out, but that's not for a while. We're not getting that starter deck for a couple more months. Kalgara as well, you're able to pressure him more than he can flood his board. His characters are much scarier, but I think Zoro's can whittle him down a lot quicker because yeah, he depends on like event counters in the late game, and then you're able to get him to the point where he has to leave Dawn up for event counters way earlier, so it's hard for him to like play on curve. Then Reiju, yeah, early ETGs are scary, but I think Zoro's animal boards are scarier. And then Nami, yeah, you just kill Nami before she can mill herself. Up next in the S tier, I would actually put Lucci. I think Lucci still is S tier. Yeah, he loses Annie's Lobby, right? The Sage card that gives you a free -2 cost a turn, but he also gets Jack in 08. Jack is an incredibly like strong engine card for the deck. It's to the point where like you don't even need Annie's Lobby. Annie's Lobby plus Jack was yeah pretty impossible to beat, but without Annie's Lobby, Jack still runs fine. He is like your hard to remove KO outlet that stays on board, because not only is he an 8k body, meaning it's hard to attack over him, he's also an 11 cost on board, 7 cost in hand, so hard for your opponent to KO via cost. So you have access to a way to kill a 3-cost character every turn and then cycle a card out of your hand too, which helps fuel a lot of your CP shenanigans in your deck, and it helps you get your 8-cost Gecko Morias too, you know? And yeah, you just substitute Annie's Lobby with like more Ice Age, or you can even run 4-cost Kuzan. Some people are starting to do that. Soap Sheep is an option too. So yeah, right now in 07, I would say Annie's Lobby is sorely missed, but once 08 comes around and you have access to Jack, and then even there's like a Sasaki 2k counter that gives -2 cost as well, it's fine. It's no issue at all. Lucci is still top meta, I would say. Also in the top meta is a deck that gets like, I want to say no addition at all in 08, but it's still a strong deck because he was not hit by the ban list and he's already an S tier deck. It's Black Yellow Luffy. He's still S tier. He plays the same, I'm pretty sure, right? I don't think he runs any of the new Egghead cards because it's not a Luffy, Ace, or Sabo card. But yeah, he'll probably have to make some modifications to adjust to this red-purple lawless meta. He's still inherently strong against Lucci, and he's one of the most consistent decks, right? You're able to do what you want to do pretty much like 90% of the time, but more than that, like 95, I would say. You barely ever have bad starts with this deck, is what I want to say. And then also in the S tier, I think Pudding actually might become S tier in this meta without Red Purple Law. That depends, like if Zoro does overtake popularity, maybe Pudding might go down to A tier. But despite that, I think Pudding is pretty strong, right? The reason Pudding didn't really have a showing at all in Japan was because the meta was 90% Red Purple Law. I don't think Zoro is going to be that overrepresented if he is like the premier aggro deck. So Pudding will have a nicer time in this meta depending on the matchups you get. And yeah, just Pudding is a leader that can get to 10 Dawn on your 4th turn pretty consistently, right? It has access to Searchers, it has access to ramp via your leader ability, so you don't have to like look for a specific card to be able to ramp. You just have to look for the cards that turn your life face down to allow your leader ability to ramp you, which is not hard to do because the cards that you use to achieve that are cards that you want to play out anyway, right? There's Viola, who's a blocker, and then there's Katakuri and Edward Newgate, who are 6-cost 7k bodies that are, you know, great attackers on their own merit. And yeah, you just get to 10 Dawn really quickly, quicker than Katakuri can, like a whole turn earlier, and then you just drop your 10-cost Big Moms, your 9-cost Big Moms, and then steal the games away after that point. Especially against slow decks, right? They really can't handle the amount of pressure you're putting out, because the 10-cost Big Mom forces them to take a life. They can't counter out of it, so eventually they'll get low on life, and then they have to defend against the 12k swings from your Big Moms. But yeah, definitely Pudding's weak point is aggro deck, so we'll have to see how like the duality of Zoro and Pudding show up in the meta that will affect how much they'll be represented in the tier list. And also in S, I would also venture to say that Bonnie is S tier. I think she's S tier right now, so she remains in S tier. She gets a few new tools in 08 with the Minx package. There's a new Carrot card that can freeze on attacking and on play. That's going to be another strong tool for Bonnie's mid game. It's not searchable in the deck, but still a great card to play out. There's also Electrical Luna, that 3-cost event that just keeps all 7 costs rested. So there's just a way to keep aggro at bay, or just like prevent your opponent's characters from untapping, so you have another like turn to swing at them and starve them out. And yeah, Bonnie's leader ability is just as strong as ever, 1 Dawn up to rest any leader or character when they attack. So I don't think Bonnie's going anywhere. And that rounds off the S tier. We'll move on to the A tier now. So A tier, I actually think Doflamingo, Blue Doflamingo. As much as I hate the deck, I have to admit he is quite strong, right? With Red Purple Log On, it opens up the space for other aggro decks to actually, compete. So it's probably either going to be Zoro or Doflamingo at this point. But once that new starter deck comes out, the new Doflamingo one, Doflamingo will be the premier like swarm aggro deck in the meta. He might even be S tier in 09. But yeah, until then, he's got to work with what he got in 07 and EB01, because he did not get anything in 08. It's all Whitebeard Pirates cards. But yeah, it's still a solid deck. Also in the A tier, I would say Gecko Moria is still here. Gecko Moria doesn't get anything new. I guess he can still run Jack too, but I think he depends more on the Thriller Bark kind of archetype, which is still a strong archetype, right? I don't think the release of 08 lessened the value of any of his combos with Absalom and ACOS Gecko Moria. And Prona is such a good, strong early card, right? She always forces 2 cards out of your opponent, because they'll usually discard a card and then take your leader hit. And then she herself becomes a 5k attack after that, which uses up more resources from your opponent. So that 2k counter Prona is crazy strong, and only Gecko Moria can utilize her in that way. And yeah, the Endy's lobby ban did not affect Moria, so I used a black deck that is as at full power as he was, always been. Did that English make sense? Oh well, next up, I think Kalgara should be A tier. It was hard for me not to put him in S tier, but I gotta admit, he's not S tier material. Because yeah, he got kind of the short end of the stick in terms of support in 08. And then in 09 too, it looks like he's not getting any support in 09 at all. So this might be the peak of Kalgara. But he is a strong deck, despite everything that's going against him, right? Being able to cheat out a body for free for 1 Dawn attached on your leader when you attack, right? So you're applying pressure anyway and cheating out a body, so you're like doubly applying pressure. That is a strong kind of play style. And then on top of that, like cards like Ohm Holy, right? That's a pretty strong combo to cheat out 2 strong attacking bodies. And then Kalgara into Norlin, right? You're cheating out 2 big bodies and then healing, so you have more life to use to keep on using your leader ability. And then the synergy with the Wipers and the Upper Yard stage card, those help you get a bunch of more cards in hand to defend yourself when you're at the late game. So despite the limited support, it's still quite the strong deck, I think. And it has access to a lot of strong yellow events too, right? They're all 1 Dawn, counter for 3, counter for 4. Power level events, that's what made Zoro strong in like OP03, OP02. So Kalgara, it might just be like the new Zoro right now, who is just waiting for a few more cards to make him busted and be like an S tier leader. But for now, I think A is as high as he'll go. Also in A, Reiju would be here. So Reiju actually gets to play now without any Red Purple Law in the meta. She did not get anything in 08, but her package, right, from 06 and 07 is just enough for her. It's mostly 06 with all the drummer cards. You're running every single drummer card that is available to run. 07 gave her the Foxy Pirates cards in the form of Portia and Chopper, and then Gina is a 2k counter that's searchable with Portia. So yeah, she's just the queen of getting out early pressure, because you can, for 3 Dawn, cheat out a 5k power character and a 7k power character with Rush, right, with Portia into an Ichiji. And then her leader can attack too, so when you can get those early plays off and keep up the pressure, yeah, you can steal away games with Reiju right away, but it's very like inconsistent. I wouldn't say inconsistent in like a bad way, right? Because her deck still functions even if you don't start off with your nuts draw. But when you get that nuts draw, you feel the full force of Reiju. But yeah, there are times where you don't get to do that early enough and you're just stuck playing like the 4-cost Reiju to draw you cards. And then you play Ichiji on like your 3rd or 4th turn. Those games aren't as impactful with Reiju, because your opponent has the tools to handle taking a 7k at that point. But receiving that 7k on your 2nd turn is like one of the worst feelings in the world to have to deal with. So because of that, yeah, Reiju has strengths, but nothing that puts her into S tier, I don't feel. And up next in the A tier, I would put Nami here as well. Again, without Red Purple Law around. Bottom decking her characters, putting it back in her deck, making it harder for herself to mill herself out. Because that's how this Nami deck wins, right? It's the only alternative win condition leader where if you deck out, you win. If the meta gets slow enough, Nami, I think, might even become S tier, but not unless, like, you know, Zoro has anything to say about it. And Kagura too. Kagura would do really well into Nami. But barring that, if the meta ends up being like Lucci's, Black Yellow Luffy's, Bonnie's, and Pudding's, I would venture to say that Nami might even be S tier at that point, but I'm having hope in Kagura and Doflamingo and Zoro here, keeping Nami at bay. And that rounds out the A tier, so this is what I would consider the meta in 08. Now we'll go over some rogue decks that I think they'll show up every now and then. So I think Purple Luffy deserves an honorable mention here. I think he might even be kind of strong now. The only thing keeping him down is that I think he has a bad matchup into Lucci and Bonnie, but he lost his weakest matchup, which is Red Purple Law. So because Red Purple Law is gone, I think Luffy is able to come back a bit, and the loss of Annie's Lobby and Lucci makes it a little harder for him to KO his bodies, but not by much. And especially once he gets Jack, it's gonna be no issue again. So I guess if he can dodge his bad matchups, Purple Luffy can have a showing in the meta, because I think he does well into Pudding, and he does well into Black Yellow Luffy, he does well into Gecko Moria, he does well into Reiju, and especially Nami. I found that Purple Luffy does really well into Nami. So yeah, I guess it just depends on what you get thrown at in your tournament run. I also think Enel might be a rogue deck now, and that's only because like a lot of these decks now play a lot of big characters that can threaten Enel a lot more easily, right? Lucci runs a lot of the 8 drops, Black Yellow Luffy runs a lot of the Gecko Morias too, and then he himself is a 11k attacker attacking you, and then the rush ace is attacking you for 7, and then Pudding is able to play 10 cost Big Mom, which can devastate Enels as well, because it's hard to counter out of a 12k hit, and then you're forced to take life from the Big Mom too. And then yeah, Bonnie runs Zoro, which can like run amok onto Enels. And then Kagura's bodies are actually pretty substantial, right? They can handle 5k Enel stat line leader pretty well. But Enel does still do well into Zoro and Doflamingo and Reiju and the likes. So depending on what the meta actually shapes up to be, Enel could end up in A if all the like big body type leaders get kept at bay from Zoro, right? If Zoro is able to keep the ratio of late game style decks down, Enel could see a place in A tier. Also in the rogue tier, I would put Boa here. Boa also gets nothing new, but I think she has a pretty solid deck. That 6 cost 8k power Boa is like one of the strongest blue cards, and she's able to draw, so she's always generating card advantage. And yeah, having access to Gravity Blade and a deck that like can actually use it and doesn't have to spend the resources to do other stuff, right? Because Reiju has to cheat out her like ETGs and stuff, and Nami has to mill herself out. Boa has the playstyle and then like the curve and the dawn to use Gravity Blade, and I think Gravity Blade is a really strong card, especially against the S and A tier decks. And yet you have access to Red Rock too, which can remove any cost character, and then you have Kaido that draws you cards or bounces stuff. So yeah, I think Boa is not like a super consistent deck, but a strong deck that will sometimes show up. But she did get nothing new in 08. And then in the rogue tier, I'm also going to put Vegapunk here. He did get a bunch of new Egghead cards. They're really strong too, right? The Bonnie card is really strong. It draws you a card when your opponent takes life. And then the Nami card is really, really strong. It's one of the best new yellow cards. It lets you KO a 5 cost or less if you trash a trigger card from your hand. And she herself is like a 5k body too. And she has a trigger that lets you do the same thing. So Nami is really strong. It is a boost for quite a few yellow decks. Now, speaking of, I think Katakuri for the same reason, right? He gets access to that Bonnie, that Bonnie, and that Nami too. So he gets a slight boost from that. And I think Carrot might be a rogue deck too. It's kind of like I want to say like a better Perona. Because yeah, you don't have the minus cost part of her leader ability, but she can rest a 5 cost or less if you have a Minx type character on board, which is one higher than Perona. So yeah, and 5 life too, so you're just better Perona. For the same reasons that Bonnie's strong, so is Carrot, right? It's all about board control and starving your opponent. And I think Red Purple Luffy is also a rogue deck. So yeah, his strategy is still ramp to 8 ASAP and then use your leader ability to ramp to 9 and get to 10. What does he get in 08? He gets Silver's Rayleigh at 8 cost. He's also a strong card, right? He gives minus 3k and minus 2k to something, and then you can pop a 3k or less. And then the minus power lasts until the end of your opponent's turn, so they stay like at that weakened state making it harder for your opponent to attack back into you. And you know, you're already a 6k base leader, so it's even harder to attack and make you take life. I think Silver's Rayleigh is a decent buff to Red Purple Luffy if he decides to run it. On the purple side, there's the 9 cost Big Mom. And then what she does is, if you play her out, -1 Dawn, you can add one of your opponent's 6 cost or less characters to the top or bottom of their life, and then you also heal one. So Red Purple Luffy being a 3 life leader, you know, you're pretty low on life. You have less cards from life to take to go into your hand to generate more advantage. So that Linlin does give you like a way to heal in purple, which is great for the deck. And I think I want to cap the rogue decks off at that. I want to keep it kind of strict. We'll go over the cope decks now. Decks that people want to be good, and then they'll try, and then maybe once in a blue moon it'll show up. So I think Red Green Law is a good example of that. There's a lot of diehard Red Green Law fans who swear that deck is good, and then yeah, the one time he shows up in the top 16, everyone's like, yeah, let's go, I told you guys. But then that's like the last time they'll show up. So that's the kind of deck Red Green Law is. I think Whitebeard also belongs in that category. He gets nothing new because all the new Whitebeard cards are blue, and this is a mono red leader. Ace too, right? There's a lot of Ace believers out there, and I think he won something in 07 once. So yeah, people were hype on that. Who else fits this kind of description? I think Rebecca too, right? It's just limited by the fact that she can't attack. If she could attack, she'd be like a wonderful leader, but yeah, kind of hard to play her. I think Chopper also kind of fits the bill there. It's like worse Zoro, so why not just play Zoro? It's a cope deck. The green part of Chopper doesn't really add anything for you. Likewise, Perona. Perona is now just worse Carrot, but I think Perona is more of a popular character than Carrot, so I could see people coping Perona still. And Foxy's a cope deck. He does have some strong matchups, surprisingly, but I think he has not gotten any new support in 08, I don't believe. Yeah, it's all Big Mom and Animal Kingdom pirates. So because of that, I think Foxy has reached the ceiling. It's a fun deck to play, I'll admit that now that I've actually tried them, but definitely a cope deck for sure. Oh, and yeah, I gotta go over the rest of the 08 leaders, right? So Marco goes here. Even though he got a whole set of dedicated support, I think he still kind of sucks. I do think that the Whitebeard starter deck that comes out the same time that the Doflamingo one does will make him a little stronger. Maybe it'll even put him in like rogue tier, but for now he's a cope tier leader. There's just no like good synergy between red and blue. Likewise, King. I don't know what King is supposed to do. His leader ability is almost as if he had no leader ability at all. The color combination, it's a workable color combination, but there's just no combo worth it unless you're trying to do like that 10 cost Kaido and Linlin combo with like Sabo, which is like really inconsistent. But yeah, other than that, you're a 4 life leader that gets to draw an extra card on your like 5th turn. Well, 5th turn onward, but yeah, you get what I mean. And then if you're having to minus a lot of Dawn for your characters too, sometimes you can't even afford to use your leader ability, which is kind of like counterintuitive to how you play purple. Let's see, I think Uta also deserves to be here. She's just not the premier way to play green at the moment. There's no way to play it aggro, the film package, right? I think the Minx and then the Supernova package just works better in the current meta. And the new Uta starter deck that comes out, that's not going to save her either. Those cards are kind of rubbish. And I think Yamato might be also a cope leader now. Let's see, who else deserves to be in cope? Maybe purple, yellow, croc, right? People always think that whenever they release a strong purple or yellow like late game card, it'll fit into purple, yellow, croc, but he never seems to make his way into the meta. Maybe Odin too. I saw people hyping up Odin for a bit, and then that hype died out. Oh right, and then these two guys, red, yellow Sabo and blue, yellow Ace. A lot of fans of these leaders, but they never really make it anywhere. And the Ace, is he a Whitebeard parts? Oh, he is. Hold on, I need to like test Ace out. Maybe he uses the 08 Whitebeard Pirates types cards better than Marco can? No. But his deck revolves around the Ace Sabo Luffy stuff, right? So maybe he's cope. Dang, he even got me coping. What the heck? Y'all saw me live cope in the video. That's dangerous. And this one's my own personal cope. I want Bella Betty to be good, but this is gonna be a cope kind of leader for probably all eternity. So I'll keep her there. Keep her in my mind. Keep her in my heart. Yeah, I think that rounds off the cope tier. I think everything else deserves to be in the every time that I kill Kaya tier. So let me just click these into here as I close out the video. So this is what I think the 08 meta is going to look like. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? It's okay if you disagree and you don't think my opinion is correct or not. No need to like get angry over it. We can discuss it civilly, right? right? I'm not claiming what I'm saying is truth. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and I'll respect your opinion too, right? The fun in this game is to be able to talk to people about it. Getting angry about things like this, I don't know, just counterproductive. There's like no productivity to be gained from that. There's really no point. You're just wasting energy. So I don't know, save some energy and let's just have a discussion, you know? What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And yeah, we'll check in on this. I want to say, like, how about we give it a month, right? Give it a month into 08 to see how the meta forms, see how tournament results end up being, and then we'll revisit this list and see how close we were. Then we'll laugh if we're completely off, right? That's why I don't get like why people want to argue about this stuff. I'm open to being wrong and laughing at myself a month later. So putting that out there, you know? And yeah, hope you enjoyed this kind of video, and subscribe if you're not already, because seeing the number goes up makes me happy. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Car D Kaizoku.